Disney's worst investment ever in the history of Disney investments in a desperate attempt to salvage both her reputation and the film. Rachel made a complete 180 on her earlier statements. But that is part of the beauty of Snow White. Has been up for 88 years now, that she just sees the good in everyone and everything. Out of nowhere, she started raving about the significance of the prince and the classic love story, something she had previously dismissed. Insiders suggest Disney executives strongly encourage her to publicly backtrack, hoping to quell the outrage and rebrand Snow White as a timeless romance once more. But rather than sounding heartfelt, her sudden enthusiasm came off forced and insincere. Fans called it out as yet another scripted performance, and social media latched on to every awkward interview clip Rachel's about faced it a little too quiet. The critics who saw the abrupt shift as just another example of Disney's relentless PR machine in action. 16-something 000 reviews with a 1.6 star. Absolutely embarrassing. How exactly did Disney manage to ruin their beloved classics and tank their reputation simultaneously too? Words Rachel Zegler Disney thought bringing in the woke generation would mean profits, applause, and endless pats on the back, but instead they got controversy, cringe, and collapsing box office numbers. It turns out that when you prioritize ticking off progressive check boxes over crafting a genuinely engaging story, you end up alienating the very fans who made you an icon in the first place. Rachel quickly became internet famous, but probably not in the way she planned. The cartoon was made 85 years ago and therefore extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power. Her interviews criticizing the iconic love story in Snow White is outdated, and labeling the prince a stalker went viral faster than Disney execs could say damage control. You know other. Yes, Rachel, nothing says Disney magic like openly trashing the very character you're supposed to portray, who needs timeless romance when you've got snarky virtue signaling. Suddenly the narrative wasn't about celebrating a new Snow White. It was about turning a beloved fairy tale into another platform for moral preaching. Fans were outraged at what they saw as a lack of respect for Disney's treasured heritage, and they didn't hesitate to voice that displeasure on every corner of social media. Disney never wanted to miss a misguided bandwagon, leapt head first into rewriting Snow White. Entirely gone was the traditional Prince Charming heroism, replaced by Rachel's dreams of political empowerment. After all, who doesn't go to Disney films hoping for a lecture on corporate feminism and woke ideology disguised as entertainment? 163,000 rating, 1.6 out of 10, by forsaking the very essence of the fairy tale. Disney managed to anger both die-hard Disney loyalists and casual viewers who simply wanted an uplifting story rather than a social commentary. It's a classic case of a major studio believing it's so invincible that it can ignore its core audience without consequence. Backlash adding fuel to the dumpster fire. Rachel openly complained about being recognized at Disney parks. Imagine being cast as a Disney princess, paid millions, and then horror of horrors, fans recognizing you at Disneyland. Wait, how often are you in line for the Snow White ride? I'm a narcissist. Poor Rachel, if only she could cash in her Disney paycheck to soothe the trauma of her fame-induced suffering. Her remarks came across as whiny and ungrateful, and unsurprisingly, they spread like wildfire across social media. Fans questioned why anyone with such a dismissive attitude toward Disney's own audience would even want to play a beloved fairy tale character. Even Disney CEO Bob Iger admitted their diversity initiative was less about genuine inclusion and more about padding their pockets. It turns out those heartfelt messages about representation were nothing more than a cunning strategy to exploit cultural trends and chase profits. Who knew corporate Executives could be so cynical meanwhile. The carefully choreographed publicity, stunts and press releases from Disney tried to paint the company as champions of progressive values. The disconnect between this crafted image and the cold, profit-driven reality made fans, and even some Hollywood insiders, roll their eyes. It's not just Disney. The entire Hollywood machine seems obsessed with virtue signaling over genuine storytelling. Actors now routinely use their platforms not to promote the films they're in, but to lecture audiences on politics, social justice, and trendy activism. Viewers understandably are growing tired of being treated like they need constant moral guidance from millionaires who often appear disconnected from everyday reality. Instead of leaving the theater or streaming platform feeling entertained or inspired, many feel preached alike. They've just paid for a scolding instead of a good time, from awkward award show speeches to endless social media rants. Hollywood's heavy-handed wokeness is driving viewers away, with shrinking box office receipts and struggling streaming platforms the loudest voices in Hollywood. Might want to consider that. People watch films for escapism and great storytelling, not an endless supply of sanctimonious lectures. Fans tired of being preached to fired back with a vengeance. Social media exploded into memes, TikToks, and scathing reviews that collectively roasted Disney's painfully obvious attempts at woke pandering. It was like watching a 100-year-old brand suddenly lose all connection to its roots. Disney seemed genuinely stunned that alienating lifelong fans wasn't exactly great for business. It's almost as if disrespecting your core audience might have consequences. Who would have guessed it was a wave of discontent so large even the normally impenetrable Disney marketing machine struggled to keep up? She's also just a spoiled, entitled, narcissistic brat. Rachel's awkward appearances on Jimmy Kimmel and other talk shows were supposed to smooth things over, but ended up making the situation worse. Watching Rachel stumble through scripted apologies while trying to sound authentic was almost as entertaining as watching Disney stock price plummet, almost. Instead of an earnest apology or a thoughtful explanation, viewers got more of the same self-righteous tone. Audiences cringed as PR spin replaced sincerity. It was as if Disney believed the public was too dim to notice the lack of genuine remorse. Needless to say, the damage continued to snowball. The entertainment giant, once regarded as bulletproof, was now scrambling to explain to investors why their surefire hits were transforming into embarrassing disappointments. Analysts on Wall Street started questioning Disney's strategic direction, pointing out that these repeated misfires weren't just anomalies, they were part of a trend behind closed doors. CEO Bob Iger openly criticized employees for valuing Disney's past successes as if the people who created legendary icons like Simba and Cinderella had no clue about storytelling. Clearly, Iger thought he knew better, pushing a vision so innovative. Now whispers suggest Disney might actually return to traditional storytelling. Imagine that. Could it be genuine remorse or just another desperate attempt to win back an alienated audience? Given Disney's recent track record, it might just be the latter. Another calculated trick dressed up as humble regret. After all backpedaling, one sales tank is a time-honored corporate maneuver. Executives are privately, some might say frantically, brainstorming ways to recapture the classic magic. And here lies the irony. Disney trashed its own legacy and mocked fans for loving traditional stories, only to find out those traditions were exactly what made them successful in the first place. Rachel's Zegler and Disney's woke crusade didn't just damage their reputations, they nearly destroyed a century-old empire. Maybe next time they'll think twice before insulting the very audience that built their magical kingdom, or perhaps they'll keep doubling down until there's nothing left to save. In the end, only time will tell if Disney can pick up the shattered pieces of its heritage and remember why audiences fell in love with the brand in the first.